And, I actually published recently a book titled The Fight for the Grail, which you can pick up at lulu.com or on my website for free, which gives a fictional / non-fictional look at who stole the inventions. And it's kind of a funny book, Dick, because it starts out, Chris Wheeler from Proskauer, he was in a drunk driving accident, a DUI with injury, which is a felony here in Florida. And the book starts out with Chris Wheeler in the car accident after injuring this gentleman with his wife, who was actually at the actual scene, who was telling the police officers he shouldn't be driving and he's drunk and wasted. And this is all real. I mean, there's an actual police report up at my website. But the book starts out, Dick, from Wheeler's blood-soaked face, eyes in this car accident. He starts recounting why he should have never stole the technologies, what and how they orchestrated the crimes kind of from their perspective. So anyway, it's just an interesting book. I think everybody should read it if you want to know really what's happened to America and how we've sunk to new low levels in our government. Iviewit definitely was a key point in history that they're trying to hide from everybody, because it does expose what happened to the RNC and why the RNC is now the most pathetic organization. I can say it's now like the grand old Nazi party. If you support Republican values, you're supporting torture and stuff. And most Republican guys I knew in college and after college, and we were Republican because we wanted a tax break. We didn't want to torture anybody for the tax break. But Michael Grebe will be the key to all understanding how all of those things occurred once he seized control of our government, which was mainly to block complaints I had filed with federal agencies. And, again, if he lost, and he's a West Point cadet, if he lost this, he was going to prison for the rest of his life. So, he pulled every stop, and we'll get into that at another time, maybe a little later in the story of how the government was overthrown to block these complaints, including why the presidential election fraud of Bush, the Supreme Court joke of a decision, again, lawyers deciding our presidents now, lawyers are our presidents now. And these aren't really lawyers, as I said. This is a criminal enterprise, Dick. Again, they're just criminals disguised as lawyers, or criminals wearing the judge's robe. Or, for example, in the financial market, they're the regulators. Again, lawyers coming from, top law firms to deregulate so they can run their scams. And, but we'll get into all that. Let's get back to the Iviewit story for a moment. So upon learning of the fraudulent legal actions, Dick, involving our attorneys and their friends, we immediately intervened in the fraudulent lawsuit and bankruptcy actions that prior we knew nothing about. And we found a whole can of worms there, a whole bunch of different frauds going on and occurring simultaneously, which eventually, Dick, we learned from information gained by working later with the Patent Office that the companies that were being sued and bankrupt were not really our own companies at all, even though they looked, smelled, and were even spelled the same as our companies. They were instead, Dick, part of this sophisticated legal scheme by our attorneys to walk the original patent filings out of the door by setting up two sets of companies with two sets of patents. Again, the old switcheroo. And so first, we instantly fired the attorneys who were illegally representing the fraudulent companies in the lawsuits and in the bankruptcy. And keep in mind, Dick, that we still didn't know they weren't our companies. So we went in and represented them as if they were our own companies. And the minute we came into the bankruptcy, they immediately fled, dropped their action. And what was fascinating about the involuntary bankruptcy, Dick, that Utley, who is the management from IBM, and the Real 3D Intel Silicon Graphics folks filed, is that they failed to file the bankruptcy against the companies they had contracts with. And so they sued other companies they had no contracts with. Yet at the time, we thought, not knowing that they were fraudulent operating companies that had similar and identical names as our own, we thought they were ours. And so we represented them as if they were really our own companies. This is really crazy. They actually had attorneys that they hired that the company had no records of, nothing. So anyways, at first it was thought they were just stupid, Dick, that they had filed on the wrong companies and they didn't know what they were doing. But upon working with the patent office and learning where these stolen patents were placed, it became evident that they had filed on companies with stolen patents in them. And then it all made sense, of course. It was learned that the stolen patents were the real reason that these bogus companies were sued, despite the fact that those that filed it had contracts with other companies of ours. So as for the billing lawsuit with Proskauer, not the involuntary bankruptcy, Proskauer had instigated this billing lawsuit with one of the bogus companies, but that action didn't go away so fast for him, because first we hired a Florida attorney, Stephen Sells, to replace the counsel I mentioned was illegally representing us, and then we took the depositions, and this is classic, Dick. We took the depositions of several of the attorneys, including Ken Rubenstein, our patent attorney, and Chris Wheeler, our corporate attorney from Proskauer, both who perjured themselves incessantly under a deposition, contradicting not only each other and themselves, and written sworn statements to the courts and to the state bar associations. And Dick, most amazing is that despite thousands of pages of evidence, Rubenstein claimed he didn't even know the Iviewit companies. He didn't know me. He didn't know the patents. And he said this in the opening of his deposition, and this was completely mind-blowing statement in light of all of the evidence. But if he admitted knowing me, the conflict with his MPEG pool, that conflict he'd be admitting to would be criminal, which it is. So he lied through his teeth. And so what was even better, Dick, was that, and this is truly amazing, at Rubenstein's own deposition, in Proskauer's own lawsuit, in their billing lawsuit, Rubenstein in the deposition, and you can get the deposition online at my website, you can even get the audio tape, I believe, and he began refusing to answer questions at his own deposition, which you have to answer questions at a deposition. It's against the law to refuse in Florida unless you plead the fifth. And Rubenstein, though, he became irate, Dick, and he became more irate as the deposer Sells laid down documents wholly refuting the claims of not knowing Iviewit or myself or of the inventions. In fact, Dick, one of the documents he was presented at his deposition was an internal Warner Brothers communication from their advanced technology group. And in it claimed that they had, quote, checked with Ken Rubenstein, who had opined favorably on the technologies. And, I was asking him, hey, is this the same Ken Rubenstein that they're talking about, that you just said you don't know these guys, but you're opining favorably on their technology? I mean, this is how mind-blowing his lies were. And it got him so frustrated, he stormed out of his deposition at his lawsuits, refusing to answer questions, screaming, take it up with the judge, we'll litigate it there, or something like that. You'll see it in the transcript, and he was screaming this stuff.